Welcome to ICTV. Today we have a special privilege to have this opportunity to meet with Lon Hodge and his service dog Gander and listen to all the wonderful stories about this dog and his journeys and Len's journeys. So Lon, why don't you just kind of give us a background of what happened with you getting this dog?
Gander originally came to me as a PTSD and a mobility service dog. I was having a lot of trouble with autoimmune arthritis, was having had severe PTSD, couldn't leave my house, a lot of changes. For a good 10 years before I met Gander, I'd had monumental problems. So I'd gone from a successful teaching and speaking career and those kind of things to pretty well just isolation.
So your PTSD was service related?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's what you call complex PTSD. So it was a combination of things and a lot of long-term stressors combined with 2 or 3 individual events that caused trouble.
So then your PTSD is then helped by this dog how?
Innumerable ways. You know, one, we know that just biologically, just touching a dog, has a lot to do with changing your chemistry. Gander in public situations will do a thing called block, and so he'll get in front of me to make sure there's just distance between me and any kind of maybe stressful situation. If I get upset, he'll put his feet on my chest and lick my face to say kind of, get back to reality. Or in simple situations, he leans against me, or he'll lean on command too. He'll lean so that he'll ground me back, so that I come back out of my head and back into whatever's happening.
And for those of you that are watching, this is Gander. Gander is a Labradoodle, an all-American breed, we call him.
Yes.
And how did you come to get Gander specifically?
It was by accident. I mentioned this. I was talking to some folks this morning and I was surfing the net going, gee, wouldn't it be nice if there was a dog that did double duty, say as mobility and PTSD. And I came across a special that Katie Couric had done about Freedom Service Dogs, where he came from. And I said, well, on the off chance, I'll write him a note. And then 7 months later, we were partnered. Well,
tell us about these Freedom Service Dogs and this process.
They've been around for about 25 years. They only use rescue dogs. Gander was on death row. He was in a kill shelter and was taken in by a women's prison in Colorado. And there he was trained. They have a program where the inmates train them in basic obedience, and then that way they can go back to the shelters to be more adoptable. Well, they saw special promise in Gander, and then they recommended him to the service dog program. Then Freedom works with the prison programs, and then they continued the training with him. And I had sent in my request. He was actually supposed to go to somebody else, and she turned out to be allergic to Gander. So much to your absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was great. So and they thought we'd be a good match. They called me on the phone. I mentioned today I was at a lecture in Rockford University a couple days ago, and I said when they called me, and I talked about this a little bit when I was here last year. I said they called and said, good news, bad news. Good news is we got you a dog. Bad news is you wanted a lab, but you're going to get a poodle mix. And so as soon as I said poodle mix at this lecture I was giving, Gander, who'd been like this through the entire thing, sat up and gave me the most derisive look. And it cracked the whole place up for about 5 minutes. But of course, then all I had to do was see Gander, love at first sight,
And how long have you had him?
Gander and I have been together over 3 years now, 24/7.
And you're here in Grand Rapids talking about service dogs and so forth, but I understand that this is part of your purpose. You go around and speak to a lot of places so that they understand the reasons for such a matchup.
Since we saw you last year, we've been to over 30 states. We've lectured to, we've given talks to Walmart Corporation, JB Hunt, Starbucks, Fortune 500 companies, Rotary clubs. Gander was the first non-human to win the Rotary International Humanitarian Patriot Award. Gander, since we saw him last year, won the AKC's Award for Canine Excellence, Service Dog Hero of the Year. We went to Orlando to pick that up. And that's opened a lot of doors for us, because it's a way for us to get in and then talk about the message. We don't take any of these accolades too seriously, other than, it means that's one more way we can get out and talk about what's real, and that's that service dogs heal people. They help prevent suicide. Having them and knowing the rules and regulations about them actually create a real welcome home situation for veterans. All those things. And then we do planned acts of community kindness along the way, around the country.
Well, tell us about the Marine that you reunited with his dog in Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize I had this on until a few minutes ago. This was a gift from the Boston Transit Police, and actually a woman in California, Frankie Franks, had helped track down. She had communication with a Marine who, after a couple of years, wanted to find his bomb dog from Afghanistan, and so actually tracked him down. Found him, and we created reunited. The Boston Transit Police had him, and they were doing wonderful work with him, and they said we're happy to return him. So we went out for the ceremony. We were guests of the Boston Red Sox. We always say, that we don't. There's no pay for anybody in what we do. When we travel, it's all it's all charity stuff. But we say the perks are tremendous. We got to sit over home plate at the Boston Red Sox and had a complete blast. And the Boston Transit Police were just some of the nicest guys.
So this dog had come over and was working with the police?
He was back. He had been sold. He'd been sold to the Boston Transit Police, and when then they heard that this veteran who had PTSD, who was getting out of the military, Dylan Bogue, they agreed to return him, which I think was enormous. And Chip Leonard, who was the police officer, I think that was a pretty powerful move on his part, because he'd been with him for 18 months at that point, so of course he was really bonded with the dog. Right. So it was probably one of the most touching things I've ever seen.
So how do you actually applied to get a dog, and this is how you got one. So how do veterans that have other issues, because these are all veteran placements, right? No,
for us, we advocate for people with specific, we have a focus on people with invisible disabilities, like PTSD, like some people with cerebral palsy or MS or Parkinson's. We had a guy that, it was in my class, by the way. He went to, he had his dog, and he went back to his small town in Wyoming. And when they asked him what it meant to him, he broke down in tears. He says, "It's the first time I've walked down the street where people didn't think I was drunk." And because he had mobility issues, and he says now they know that it's something else. And so we do that. We advocate for anybody that needs a canine connection of some kind. So they can go to on my website. We keep a list of those agencies that do veteran and non-veteran placements. Some for free, most for free. Some for a fee, but we have it by state and we have it by list. So it's on. You can go to veterantraveler.com, or you can go to operationfetch.com, and it's there, and just access the list.
Now, a service dog takes a lot of training. How does this get paid for if these dogs are then given supposedly to other people? How does the payment for the training prior to that?
The former CEO of Freedom Service Dog said, it was the worst business model in the world. They give the dogs away, and so they do fundraisers through the year, and we've also done things to help people connect with service dogs. We probably connected 15 people this year with service dogs at different agencies around the country. So these dogs are about $35,000 each for training. Through training, anywhere depends on the agency. They can run from 15 to 30,000, and they do it strictly with. In our case, we have a book, and Dogs We Trust, and we sell that to get around the country and help make the connections. Or we do fundraisers online, and we sell different products and things like that. We've not directly gone out and asked for donations ever, but groups like Freedom do, and they're supported by Dish TV and a lot of large corporations, Rockpile Energy and guys like that.
Helps with all the things, the expenses of it. Yeah. Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier that we haven't dealt with exactly is you said that Freedom dogs are all rescue dogs.
They're all rescue dogs at Freedom.
So how do they find these dogs?
Yeah, they go to the shelters. You know, they check out dogs in the shelters. They get recommendations. The nice thing is the prison system, who's training those dogs in basic obedience, then can identify dogs they think would be good service dogs, and then the trainers like Brianna Orr from Freedom will go out and do a temperament test and see if the dog's right, and then bring him in and see how they do.
Tell us a little bit about this prison system training, though. I think that's just absolutely fascinating. Is that just in Colorado?
No, you know, the thing now has gone, I think they were one of the first programs ever, and this thing's gone nationwide. There's a wonderful group in Texas, Patriot Paws. There's one called Puppies Behind Bars. A good friend of ours that works with the Carter Center. She works with a jail program that also does a lot of training in Atlanta. So there's a lot of those. They bring them in. We work with a program in Chicago that's called the Valor Program. It's part of Safe Humane Chicago, which is the people who help place the dogs. And they bring in veterans who are in transition from either psychiatric treatment or homelessness and that kind of thing. They train the veterans how to train the dogs, and then the dogs go back to the shelter. And they've gone from a 2% survival rate to almost an 80% placement rate.
Wow.
And so I call it the triple rescue. So you've helped this vet, you've saved the dog, and then whoever gets that dog really gets something special in their lives.
I would think, being a dog lover myself, I would think it would be very hard to give them up. I mean, I realize in the prisons they probably don't have a lot of choice, but they must fall in love with the dogs like you fall in love with Gander.
Yeah, at our graduation we had several of the women who'd worked with Gander sat behind us at our graduation. I felt guilty taking Gander away because everybody was in tears, you know. So, you know, he's easy to fall in love with, and I think a lot of their tears were they were happy to see that he was getting placed, and also though, you know, it was a loss for them.
Yeah,
you know,
because that's got to be for if it's vets doing it, or if it's not just a training facility type of thing where people know that that's what's going to happen.
Oh, it would kill me, but
you end up falling in love with the dog, and then what?
Yeah, it would kill me. Yeah, but
what does Gander do for you? You've said a little bit about like leading on you, and what else does he do for you?
You know, Gander was a mobility dog early on. He still does some mobility things for me, but primarily now he's become a psychiatric service dog. So that means he's there to intervene in times when I don't know on my own that maybe I'm about to head to a place I shouldn't head, you know, like psychologically. So if there's noise in a movie theater, people have watched him, you know, he'll get up in my chest and encourage me to leave because he knows the sound will eventually send me over the top. If he hears my voice raised in a conversation, he'll come to me to make sure that I'm okay. If the other day the Comcast guy came to do some work in our house, and Gander positioned himself between me and the Comcast guy. He's not allowed to be aggressive. He's not allowed to be a protective dog, but he'll block between me and the Comcast guy to make sure that I'm okay and that I feel that safe distance between the two of us.
Now, like you said that you had, you know, both mobility issues and PTSD issues. Have those lessened because of the dog, or
Yes.
do they just?
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that there's been a lot of improvement, and it's a combination of things, but it started with Gander. Gander's made it easier for me to get out into public, made it easier for me to. 3 years ago, we wouldn't have had this conversation. I wouldn't have done an interview this morning on the radio, because I just wasn't comfortable being out in public anymore. And but somebody who had done that all their life, you know, that kind of thing, been in public, and then couldn't do it anymore. So, and as I do more of those things, then I'm more mobile. Then, you know, it helps improve my physical health and everything. You know, it's just exponential what it does.
What it does for you, and
Yeah.
And Gander's just sleeping through the whole thing.
He played a lot of ball this morning. So, you know, that's the one question people ask too. They say, you know, does a service dog ever have a good time? Well, yeah, Gander. Well, we've had people from Freedom send me notes and say we wish we had Gander's life.
Yeah.
When we went to go pick up the award for the AKC ACE Award, we went to Orlando, and Gander got to ride the rides at Disney World and that kind of thing, and he had a blast.
What did he like the best?
Haunted Mansion, I think, was his favorite. And that's a really difficult one. That's, I mean, if somebody ever brings a phony dog into a phony service dog into Disney, they would know immediately by that, because they've got the sidewalks moving at one speed and the cars are moving at another speed, and the dog has to get in and he has to position himself just right. And Disney is really a master of how to do disability access and stuff, and they've done it right. And they allow you to bring in well-trained dogs. It's special.
Now, tell me a little bit about how much you can allow the dog to have interactions with other people, and how much they have to be totally for you, or Gander in particular, totally for you, but other service dogs, because I've often seen them with their vests on that say "do not pet" and things like that. You know,
rule of thumb is, in the easiest way, and again, we talk about this a lot, Gander is by definition medical equipment. Of course he's not. You know, he's like, you know, a lot more than that, but he is the same as a wheelchair or an oxygen tank. So you wouldn't go up and ask to push somebody's wheelchair. You wouldn't go at, you know, you wouldn't play with the knobs on their, you know, on their oxygen tanks. So the same thing with Gander. The same thing with any service dog. You don't interact with them unless you've got the okay from a handler. And you have to know that the handler may have been asked 50 times already that day if their dog can be petted. And
well, Gander is kind of looks at everybody like, here I am.
Yeah.
Come pet me, come be with me.
Well, and there's a little controversy over that, because Gander's a little bit different. He doubles as a therapy dog. We visit hospitals, you know, we go to hospices, we do a lot of public stuff. So I allow Gander more interaction, and so, but that's not, you need to know that's not normal, you know. So most people, it's best to let those people go. The reason why they have the dog is to be able to have more access. So to get in the middle of that's to interfere with their access.
It's interesting in that I have a friend who has a service dog, and if the service dog's vest is off, then the dog can come and play with you and let you pet him and whatever. As soon as the vest goes on, the dog becomes a working dog again. It's very interesting.
A lot of the service dogs are like that. They understand that as a cue. And for Gander, he knows verbally from me or by, you know, we do everything intuitively now, but he'll know by hand command or that kind of thing that he's supposed to be Velcroed to me or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as you go around doing these kinds of things, what kind of questions do you get from people? Because I know I'm not asking all of them. So what kind of things do people want to know?
We get some funny ones a lot of times. You know, somebody will say, "Is he a blind dog?" You know, and I'll usually answer, "No, he sees just fine."
A dog for the blind is what they're saying. I love that.
And or you know, they'll say, "What do you need him for?" And that's really kind of, you wouldn't ask somebody why they needed a wheelchair or things like that, but they'll ask, "Why do you need him?" And generally I'll answer and then make it an educational moment and say, you know, but don't ask that of other handlers. You know, that's you know,
because you're out in front all the time. I mean, this is part of your reason for being, is to educate the public, and that's what you're doing here today, and that's what you do at Rockford or wherever you've been. So that makes it a little bit different, I guess.
Stressful sometimes,
I'm sure,
but it's good. I mean, we know that you know that's the thing to do, and we're finding more and more that people are teaching their children, you know, not to interact with the service dogs without consent and things like that. So it's heartwarming. We've seen big changes just in the last 2 years we've been doing this, and we've had impact, I think, on several on national policy for several companies. You know, we've been next month I'll be speaking at America's Best Value Hotels annual convention to talk to them about service dog access in hotels and what to do and what not to do and those kind of things to make access easier for everyone.
You know, there's been a little controversy out there that I've been hearing about emotional support dogs, where people actually get their dogs on airplanes and whatever because they've listed them as an emotional support dog. Yeah, I mean, my dog is an emotional support to me, but I'm not. He's not an emotional support dog.
Everybody loves their animals, and everybody gets comfort from their animals. You know, if the problem with that is a lot of people put vests on their dogs that say service dog and take them on the airplanes and things like that. And what that does is, if that dog doesn't have the kind of training Gander does, you know, the possibility of barking or snipping or getting into food or, you know, doing something inappropriate, casts a bad light on all of us, and then makes us, especially non-traditional looking dogs like Gander, makes us suspect. And so I beg people not to do that. And now you're seeing, though, a growing number of states calling for criminal penalties for people that fake service dogs.
Okay.
You know, and it's easy to buy these things on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, it's a real. It's kind of like, who was it, Justin Bieber, or somebody who went to Disney and ran around in a wheelchair so he could get, you know, into the lines quicker and that kind of thing. It's really akin to that, or it's akin to using a disability placard. You take away a space and you create problems for somebody who really needs it. You know, and you don't know how much grief that causes us in our lives. It's really horrible.
Well, you mentioned that Gander is kind of a non-traditional looking service dog. He's so lovable looking right off the bat that it must be very hard to keep people away from him.
I've said often the first 4 months that we were together were probably the most traumatic 4 months of my whole PTSD life, because everybody wanted to engage this dog, and I wasn't ready to be engaging the public yet. So, but at the same time, that forced me then to find coping mechanisms for that. So it was really good. But yeah, it's what's the old thing is, you know, it's better to marry an ugly wife, you know. It's kind of better to have an ugly dog, you know. So.
Oh, Gander, that was not nice.
But he's not.
No,
he's
a gorgeous dog.
Yeah, I'm stuck with an engageable mutt.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and Labradoodles themselves have become very popular these days. I mean, lots of people have. Now, he isn't as curly as some of them that I've seen.
He's really different looking, but for sure he's a Labrador. We had his DNA done, and because everybody was asking what he was, you know, so I said, well, I better, you know, let me get a real answer. And yeah, these designer dogs, these go for $2,000-3,000 now, and they're also thought to be hypoallergenic, you know, which he's really not. He's, you know, I mean, they still have dander, they just don't shed. But
Gander has dander?
Yeah, Gander has dander.
Okay.
So yeah, they're tremendous dogs. I mean, they've got all the love and goofiness and loyalty of a lab, and they've got all the smarts of a poodle. It doesn't
get much better than that.
Oh man, and they don't shed. How incredible is that?
So, did you have any problems with him when you first started? Did you have to learn more than the dog?
Yeah, I think I don't think. My wife, who's a Silk Road historian and has studied all different art and religion, but Buddhist art and stuff specifically on the Silk Road, and she says she thought Gander was a bodhisattva. And bodhisattvas are like creatures who've been enlightened, or people that have been enlightened but decided not to go on to nirvana, but to stand around and teach us patience and understanding and those kind of things. And I think that's what a dog does. And I think that was the biggest chore for me. It was like suddenly I wasn't isolated anymore. I had to be responsible for somebody else, and I had to really care about this animal. And he's taught me how to be more unconditional. He's taught me how to be more patient. He's taught me how to be I'm a better person because of this dog.
Well, I think dogs do that to all of us. You know, what is it somebody said one time? I wish I could live up to what my dog thinks I am.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So that's so did you have any issues with people, you know, not recognizing that he was a service dog just because he is kind of untraditional looking?
Yeah, we've been thrown out of a lot of places. You know, we've and because two issues. One, because he doesn't look like a service dog. Second, because there were times for a long time there were times when he needed to be off leash. You know, a lot of PTSD dogs, they're taught to go in and check rooms out ahead of you to clear a room. There also need to be some space so they can block for you if they need to in certain situations. So that makes people uncomfortable, and I understand that. We try not to do that as much as we can. So we've been asked to leave a lot of places, sometimes very hostilely.
Oh,
yeah.
Still?
Still, you know, it's really funny. There are pockets around the country. You know, we've had, we go to Denver, which is a very dog-friendly place, and of course there's a lot of service dog agencies there, and Freedom is there, and so never had an access issue. We've never had an access. Everybody's been wonderful in Grand Rapids. Chicago is probably one of the worst cities on the planet, and we're right there, and we're always advocating.
That's what's home.
It's just horrible, especially with a lot of chain restaurants and chain motels where people from other countries run them, because in their country maybe there's a religious bias against dogs, or maybe the dogs run wild, like in India, the dogs run wild and are dangerous, so they're afraid of dogs. So that's part of the issue, and we try to understand that. I try to get that culturally so we can do the best we can to make it easier. But yeah, we've had a lot of, and because of this though, we always try to turn it into a teaching opportunity, so that we say, hey, in fact, I rejoined Rotary Club because we'd gotten thrown out of a library in North Chicago, and I said, the cop came and said, you know, what should we do about this? And I said, why don't we bring the director over and we'll have a talk. And the director came down, and I said, why don't we do some education? So he said, why don't you come to my Rotary Club and give a talk? And so now we're really good friends, and now because of that, you know, he won the Rotary Club award, and now we travel to Rotary Club conventions and things like that. And
well, tell them a little more about this, because isn't he the first non-human to get this?
The first non-human to get.
Although you are human.
Yeah,
Gander,
pretty human.
but.
So yeah, he's the Rotary Club Humanitarian Patriot Award winner for. It's a two-year award, the ACE Award winner, those kind of things. Yeah, so yeah, pretty special.
Yeah. Now, how many commands does he understand?
Wow.
Ballpark. There's just about.
I'd say probably close to 200. 200.
Oh, we're going to lie down now.
Yeah, there we go. A lot of them are very subtle, and a lot of them are, are more direct. So yeah, he can. He'll touch whatever I ask him to touch. He'll it's on and on and on. Subtle things that you might not notice.
Yeah.
When we go in somewhere, he'll go underneath a table instead of, like other dogs, stay to the exterior.
Yeah.
If I dropped a steak in front of him, he would ignore it. It would be like it doesn't exist.
Unless you told him that he could have it.
Unless I told him. Well, even then, I probably wouldn't tell him to take it off the floor, and he won't take anything off the floor. If he's sniffing because he knows that you've been around a dog, then and I say, manners, he'll
back off.
He'll back away, or this probably, and we have a lot of things we do on our own, but probably about 200 now.
So he's pretty intuitive. I think you mentioned before. He can kind of
everything we do.
He knows what you need and want.
Yeah, back in the early days, it was a lot of treats and a lot of belly rubs and things like that. And now it's like we just do it because he gets that stuff anyway.
He knows he's got a good thing going as well as you know that you've got a good thing going.
Yeah.
We've had the opportunity today to speak to Lon Hodge and see his wonderful dog Gander, who is a freedom dog and a service dog for Lon. And Lon spends a lot of his time educating people as to the needs and the requirements of service dogs, and we are just delighted to have had you here today. Oh,
this is wonderful, but we need to add too that a lot of it has to do with the community that we have on Facebook and on social media. These are the best people you can imagine on the planet, and they facilitate everything we do, and we wouldn't be doing anything without them, and it's really a wonderful place to go and be.
So you have a Facebook community that kind of is Gander's community, Gander's group.
About 239,000 followers, I think, at this point. Yeah.
So you have groupies, Gander, right?
Well, yeah, we say we're all roadies in Gander's band.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lon, for being here today and spending your time with us. And thank you too, Gander. We appreciate it. This is Mary Kay Jacobson talking, and I just want to welcome you all and thank you for watching ICTV.